What up, y'all? Welcome back to another video. Welcome back to another episode. Once again, man, thank you guys for coming back. Thank you guys for supporting me. Yeah, man, so I just wanted to cut the camera on and just let my thoughts flow and everything. I eventually want to do some stuff on the computer, show you guys some stuff, kind of run through some clips. There's certain videos on YouTube that are very interesting to me, right? And you know how some people have reaction videos, some people do like all different type of stuff. I just feel like the way I look at certain things on YouTube, like certain videos, I don't know if you guys heard of it, of this channel. It's called Soft White Underbelly, which is a dope ass channel. If you guys haven't heard of it, check it out. It's cool because it's this channel that they interview and they talk to people, you know, regular people who come from like different types of backgrounds, completely different type of background, like crazy backgrounds, crazy stories, drug addicts, ex-prostitutes, pimps, KKK members, all that stuff, right? Like they interview them and they ask them questions, and it's interesting because everybody has a backstory, right? Everybody starts off as this little seed in this big world where we grow into our environment, right? We're products of our environment, you know, where we grow up around or who we grow up around, and our experiences that we experience and everything, we become that. And it's a challenge in itself because you have to fight certain temptations and you have to really ask yourself certain questions, or this is right or this is wrong. It's tough, man. It's very in-depth if you really think about it, like our environment. And when we grow up, like we become that. Obviously there's different influences. You go to school, you meet certain people, you're influenced in different ways, you're kind of pulled this way and that way. The challenge in life is to really understand yourself and to really be in tune with yourself. And that's for me, like that's my biggest goal in life. Like that's the one thing that I'm extremely passionate about and focused on and locked in on, is understanding myself to the core, like being in tune with myself and, you know, my values and what I stand on, right? Like I feel like when you have that, you can conquer anything. But that's tricky because, you know, we're social beings, right? We're social animals, and we grow up in environments and we're influenced, and sometimes you make a wrong decision or you make a bad decision that leads to another bad decision that leads to a bad habit. Everything has a trickle effect, right? Everything that you do there's a consequence to everything that you do. And that's like the challenge in life too. Like you make decisions and you live with the consequence, right? And that consequence could be good or bad. That decision could be good or bad. It depends on what we're talking about, right? So, you know, just to give you guys an example, personally, just to kind of share with you guys, let me think of an example of, you know, experience that I guess shaped me, right? Because we all have that. We all have experiences that shape us, and experiences that we never forget. And sometimes you forgive, or you're at peace with it, you know. But there's those moments in our lives where certain things happen or don't happen that you never forget. Let me try to think of an example for you guys. I'll give you guys an example of something that I feel is like wired into me because of this experience. And I shared this with a friend of mine just recently, yesterday actually. And I shared it with you guys before in my previous video about my instincts, you know, and well, I guess I could just touch up on it now. In my past video, my life experience, right, when I got jumped from my bike and all that stuff. So I remember I was probably like 10 or 11, and me and my cousin were riding our bikes around Long Beach pretty much all morning, and we came back to our apartment. We lived across the street from a park. He wanted to go upstairs and he was done riding his bike. He was done, he was tired, but I wanted to keep going, so I was like, oh, let's just ride around the block one more time and then we can go upstairs and we'll be done. That was my thought process. And you know, he was against it, but he eventually, you know, agreed to it. He was like, oh, I guess we could do it. So I was kind of pushing. I was like, no, let's go. So we begin to ride. We're gonna cross over to the park, and I noticed those guys across the street looking over at us, and my cousin had already crossed the street. And I there was a moment where I paused, and like I knew, like my instincts or my intuition told me, don't cross the street, you know, something's off. You know, you see it, but I'm 10 or 11, you know, so I see it, but I don't fully understand it, right? And I'm not confident enough to express that to my cousin. So I just follow him, you know, I just go across the street with him. And yeah, you get surrounded and all that stuff, and they eventually, you know, take my bike, and
that
and that experience was very traumatic for me, especially being a kid and not really understanding it completely. You know, it was a moment where like I realized the reality of life and the reality of the world around us. You know, like there are opportunists and there's people that, you know, take advantage, and there's people that, you know, for those kids, like they were probably like 17, 16, who knows what was going on in their life, right? Like, they come from different backgrounds. If they're willing to do something like that, broken home, maybe they're just influenced and they're not strong enough to get over that. You know, there's so many different things that go into that. But that moment made me so much more aware of my surroundings. Even now, like, I feel like that moment, looking back on it, that experience, you know, when I said that we go through experiences that never leave us, right? We always look back on it, and of course sometimes you want to change certain things, like, oh, I shouldn't have crossed the street, or I shouldn't have did this or that. But you go through experiences for a reason. You know, I feel like you go through things for a reason, and there's always a silver lining and a lesson to be learned if you can pick apart the experience and you put emotion to the side, and you put the traumatic, if it's a traumatic experience, if you can put that aside, which is not easy. I'm not saying that's easy. It's a lot easier said than done. But if you can do that to an extent and kind of pick it apart and see it for, you know, the silver linings and what you could take from it, I think that's important. And what I took from that was, you know, I'm very aware now, like, everywhere I go, like, almost to the point where I'm anxious. I'm like, man, like, you know, I'm always like looking around. If I go into a restaurant, if I go into like the gym or whatever, like, I size up everybody, bro. Like, not in like an aggressive, like, yo, what's up? Like, but I size up people. Like, everybody I see, I size up every time, like, naturally. Like, I don't even think about it. And it's funny though, because I used to have a bad staring problem, which got me into trouble a couple times, like in school and in mostly in school and like high school. I used to have a bad staring problem because I was always like, I would stare, you know, at people, but my mind would be elsewhere. I'd be thinking about something else, but like I'd be staring, you know, to like, as a, I don't know if it's like a defense mechanism type of thing, or like a being aware of my surroundings, or, you know what I mean? It was a weird thing. I'm still trying to understand that, you know, why I had a staring problem and what a staring problem is, right? Like, when you stare at people, like, obviously it's probably different from person to person, but I had a bad staring problem. Like, I admit that. Yeah, man, I'm always sizing up people and like just aware, you know, and I feel like that moment was, you know, one moment that really shaped that in me. And I think it's dope that I'm able to like look back on that and like that traumatic experience that really scarred me. Like, you know, I was a kid that I was always out in the street, always playing, always at the park, always going out. And after that moment, after that happened, I was scared to go outside. I was scared to go outside my apartment. Like, I remember I'd walk downstairs to the street, and I'd just be like looking over my shoulder. Like, I was scared, you know what I mean? I was traumatized for a while. I think what helped me was my dad used to like to take his lawn chair across the street to the park and just sit down and just chill under a tree. And he would take us with him. I think that helped me be more comfortable again, being outside. And, you know, I kind of had that protection. But I was always aware too, like, even with him, like, my dad was, you know what I mean? He's about it, you know what I mean? But he's yeah, I don't know, I can get into it, but I felt safe to be around him out in that environment. But I knew he's just one person, right? He's just one man, like, anything could happen. So even when I was out with him, I was still aware. I was still looking around, like, and then after a while I kind of got comfortable again and being out and stuff, and I think I grew out of it. But that instinct though, and that awareness never left me, you know, just that I could always look back on that moment, because that was a big moment for me in my life. And I feel like, you know, a lot of you guys, everybody has moments, right? Like, you guys can look back on stuff, and whether it's a good or a bad experience, you could take a lot from it. And I think that's important, you know, because it helps you grow. If you're able to expand on an experience, I think you're able to grow from it. And if you can grow from it, it's only better, right? It's progress in your life, and you can kind of deal with it differently if you come across it again. And I feel like that's, you know, I mean, that's important. It's important for someone's growth. And man, that was a crazy time. It's just weird how, like, you know, man, you look at the past, you look at the present, you look at the future, and it's like jumbled, right? You're always like bouncing back and forth. At least for me, like, I think about, okay, what am I doing in my future? And I bring myself back. I'm like, wait, let me stay in the present. And then I think about stuff in the past, and man, I probably should have done this differently. Then I bring myself back into the present. So it's like pulling back and forth. But I think what only matters is the present, right? Like, what matters is the present, because what you do in the present creates your future. And you're in charge of the decisions that you make. And the lessons that you learn. And it's not gonna be easy. It's gonna be ups and downs. You're gonna mess up. I'm gonna mess up every time. Like, you know what I mean? I'm gonna learn from it. I might do it again. You know, I might mess up again and again and again. But I think if you could find a silver lining with that, I find silver linings in most of my mistakes. You know, I haven't tapped into all my mistakes, or all my not so good experiences. But the ones that I have tapped into, you know, I learn. You know, I try to look at it objectively and not let emotion get involved, and see, okay, what could I have done differently? Why did I act this way? You know, if somebody says something, why did I react a certain way? Let me take a step back, so when in the future, when somebody says something along the lines of the same thing, I can, you know, address it differently. I could take a step back and observe it and stuff like that. I feel like it's part of learning, part of being more in tune with yourself. Yeah, it's easy though to get caught up in the past, and because you are your past to an extent, right? To a degree, you are your past. You, like I said, you know, we create our future, or who you are now, and the decisions that you make now create who you're going to become. So really, you know, our past is us to an extent though, right? It's not, you're not defined by your past, because the past, you know, you made the decisions and you can't change them, but you are your present. You know what I mean? Like it's a little confusing thing, but yeah, just stay in the present, create your future, create what's best for you, learn from your experiences, try to pick it apart, and control your emotions. That's like the biggest thing, which is the hardest thing to do. The way you're attached to your emotions is tough. Like that's tough to like control, because then with that you start getting all these thoughts and all that stuff. So I think controlling your emotions will give you a clear mind into thinking and into perceiving things differently. So that's that. You know, I just wanted to break down that thought. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you guys for the continuous support. Like I said, I'll forever be grateful. And if you like this video, go ahead and like the video. Comment down below what you think about this concept and this thought. And subscribe if you haven't subscribed. I appreciate it. And that's it. So I'm gonna catch y'all later. Peace.